call this special Putney Selectboard Public Informational Meeting to order at 5 o'clock. And this is a required meeting related to having a bond issue on Australian ballot at town meeting. And it is, the article reads, the article related to the bond reads, this is in the interest of potentially purchasing a new engine 1 fire truck, 2021 fire engine. And the article reads, the town of Putney seeks voter approval to purchase a new 2021 fire engine for the Putney Fire Department to be financed by general obligation bonds or notes for a purchase price not to exceed $550,000. The question to be voted upon by Australian ballot shall general obligation bonds or notes of the town of Putney in the amount not to exceed $550,000, bearing an interest rate not to exceed 2% for a term not to exceed 10 years, be issued for the purpose of financing a new 2021 fire engine for the Putney Fire Department, and this is voted by Australian ballot. If in favor of this bond, make a cross in this square. If opposed to this bond, make a cross in this square. We had a comparable meeting 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago
at the fire department, and had some very interesting discussion. Number of firefighters, there happened to be a fire call at the time, so Tom was not available, and but there were a number of firefighters present, and that was helpful to the conversation, and a handful of townsfolk to ask questions. So I don't know whether you want to, Doug, is that what you're here for, to hear about this? So I don't know whether you want to, have you, there's a packet related to this. And
that's a new, I added a slide to that.
Karen has done that as a slideshow, but given that, somebody else coming? Given that there's only one of you, I don't know whether we want to go through the whole slideshow. Hi, Nancy.
I have some simple questions.
That's great. Simple questions are good. So, Tom, you want to say anything? Or Karen, do you want to say anything? And or should we just take questions? Nancy, you're here for talk about fire truck?
Yep.
There's a packet of slides that we have seen that has information about this potential purchase. And we did it as a slideshow at the last meeting, but with limited folks here, we're going to do it this round just by Q&A, as long as that's okay with everybody.
So can I just make a comment that I did add one slide to the presentation. It's slide number 12, and it's an analysis. So basically, if we purchase the truck now, that's what we're considering. And then if we wait, the other side has all those items that
was included in this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And also on the debt service spreadsheet, I cleaned it up a little bit, Josh. And I took all the articles and I put them at the bottom. So right now,
All the current articles, yep.
yeah, so the total of current debt is the $3,949,355.32. So with the 3 articles on the bottom, it would increase the total debt to $4,862,979.76.
Which represents a change of $913,624.
There you go. Okay, so I cleaned it up too, and I averaged the payments, especially for the fire truck, because it's over 10 years. I mean, you get your principal and you have your interest, and I mean, it's gonna fluctuate year after year.
But 41,487 is average, is that per year?
59,375. So your principal
I'm sorry,
payment,
yep.
yes, so the principal payment on the fire engine would be $54,747. And then your total interest is the $46,255, so over 10 years, it ended, yeah, I don't even have that, I think it's in the slideshow, but,
How much per year that is, you mean?
right,
Well, that's just divided by 10 years, so
do you have that?
4,600, 240,
It's like $4,600?
exactly,
Yes, yeah.
because it's 46,000.
Yeah.
by 10 years, so, yeah.
So it's easier to see it that way.
So, and one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was, one of the slides is related to the various different financing options. And the reason we're putting this up as a bond article is because the interest rate is so good. And we are agreeing to do it at, or the article reads no more than 2%, but I think the last time we checked with the bond bank, it was more like 1.45 or 1.4
Correct.
something, so.
Yeah,
Depending on what it is on the day we either get approval or don't.
Right.
That would be the interest rate we'd be looking at, so we're in that range. So, questions, Doug?
So just to comment on what you just said, if you wait, it might even go lower and lower and lower, the way things are going. But that's not why I'm here.
In the short term.
Yeah, in the short term.
Yes, yeah.
I have a couple general questions and then a couple of specifics, but, so the old engine is going to be sold.
Yes.
Who buys an old 15-year-old fire truck?
It's gonna be traded in. Part of so whichever, obviously the truck will go out to bid, and
The truck
whoever,
we're looking to purchase would go out to bid.
right, and whoever gets the contract, whoever wins the bid and gets the contract, it'll be stipulated in the bid spec that they have to provide us with a trade-in value that they will give us, and then the truck, essentially, should this pass, should this go through and continue, we get the new truck, they take the old one.
So what do they use it for? The parts? Tear it apart and use it for
That's
parts?
up to them. So, I'm sure they'll recycle it and they'll do whatever they feel they need or want to do to it and then resell it.
Or, yeah, I mean, there are lots of small, we do in the ballpark of 550 calls a year. If you're a department, rural, small department that does, 112 calls a year and that truck's only gonna go out 40 times a year, it's probably a pretty good truck for somebody at a good price. So there's a good market for
In
decent
reality,
used fire
a
trucks.
lot of used fire trucks end up overseas.
I believe that too.
It just surprises me somebody would buy a 15-year-old part. But just like any sort of piece of heavy equipment, I guess they just last. So that kind of leads to my first general question, and that is, that old of a truck has an old engine and an old exhaust. Now, my last job before I came here, before I retired, was with the California EPA Air Resources Board, and one of my jobs was to assist small bus transit lines change out their engines, because they had like 1990 vintage engines which were dirty, and the law said that anything up to 1996 had to be replaced right now. And that was when I was there back in the early 2000s. And then there was a schedule up through 2020 for anything that was in the 1990s up through 2010. Or to put on what they call BACT, which is Best Available Control Technology. So I know enough to get me into trouble here, but so the question is, does the state of Vermont, and I've done a little research. I actually went to the state, and I haven't read all the articles yet, but it's just in general, does the state of Vermont require that old dirty engines be replaced at some point, or is it just a fact that the new engine is going to be the best available? You just on that assumption.
The new engine, I mean, I'm speaking off the cuff here, but, the old engine would be grandfathered because it's an existing. And as far as I know, Vermont does not have requirements, at least on emergency vehicles,
On no vehicle.
to upgrade engine use. I mean, you see some of the stinky old things running around, not fire engines, but some of the,
I would guess that
Walk trucks.
2006 might have an old, dirty
Yes.
engine.
yeah.
I think it was around 2010 was when they really made, like Bosch and some of these, made, you could breathe the air out of the tailpipe and it
Yeah.
wouldn't hurt you.
So the new, I mean, it's actually one of the things that adds tremendous expense to the new vehicle is all the emission control, and it's also a maintenance issue. I mean, there, you know, you
It's
might be
huge.
able to speak better to this. You know, it's a big part of the, it's a big percentage of the cost of a new vehicle.
They lowered cylinder temperatures in the diesel so you don't produce nitrous oxide. And doing that, you build up carbon because you don't burn the carbon off. So now you have to catch the carbon in expensive filters, and you have to add fluid to keep it burning out correctly. And all of that's expensive and wears out and troublesome.
Yeah, we went through
And
that.
Vermont doesn't require you to change anything that wasn't built that way from the manufacturer. You're required to keep it as good as it was when it was made. So.
And I know the process for burning out the carbon, you've got to, I mean, it's really elaborate. You have to have a special place to do that. That's not my main question. The reason I asked that question is it occurred to me, there's all these trucks going up and down the road, and I live right next door to 5, and particulate matter, and I don't know what the law is here in Vermont, but, and I'm not going to change it overnight if it isn't, but I presume the new technology that comes out of Detroit or wherever they build these, you know, Cummins and Detroit Diesel and whatever, Allison engines is the best available. I mean, it's not like the fire truck industry would go find an old dirty engine to put in. They would put in a new engine, right?
Well, and they're required. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean, any new vehicle is required to meet current standard. And you know, as you're probably aware, coming from California, the standards in California are as
Yeah.
stringent as they are anywhere in the world, I think. And Vermont, I'm sure, is more lax as far as that's concerned, but these are all federal standards, I believe, that it would be
Absolutely.
for new vehicles.
That one thing I picked up is a federal standard.
Yeah.
So that's good. Thank you very much. I have questions not on this vehicle, but on the other vehicles. So the general question that covers them all, so do we go out with a specification that says this is what kind of engine we want to have in all of these different vehicles? And they would of course be new technology, but it's in the specification. Do we actually itemize that as it's got to have a Cummins engine or an Allison engine or something like that?
In reality, we're pretty limited to the engines that are available to us, the motors that are available, because of the cost associated by those motor manufacturers to get them so that they are EPA compliant. With fire trucks, there's each separate engine, transmission, chassis combination has to be tested, and that costs hundreds, tens of thousands of dollars at least. So over a very short number of years, back 2010, 2012 timeframe, all the engine manufacturers, a lot of them bowed right out. They said, we're not going to make over-the-road motors anymore. They'll make off-road, but not over the road.
So basically you put on a spec, we want a vehicle that does this, and then if it has
We
this engine or that
spec the
engine.
motor that we want, knowing,
Okay.
and based on what the truck is gonna do and what it needs for power,
Okay.
and knowing that it's gonna meet all the requirements.
But you're essentially speccing the horsepower.
Exactly, yes.
And then as it goes out to bid, any given manufacturer is gonna tell you, well, you know, Cummins is the only one that specs that horsepower engine for that vehicle, or it's gonna be a Detroit Diesel or an Allison or whatever.
And it's probably gonna be standard because they're in the business of punching out cookies.
Exactly.
Cookie cutters, you know, so.
How many choices do you have, Tom? What do you want to get, a Cat 450? What
No,
engine
it's
do you
not,
want?
it's gonna be a Cummins,
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, 12 liter.
If you go with E1, but there are other manufacturers, or
Yeah,
they all
and
pretty much all
all of them use strictly Cummins.
And that's not only the horsepower rating that you want, it's also a proven system.
Right,
That's
exactly.
reliable.
Yeah, exactly.
right, Which is
So,
even more important, really,
Right.
than all the rest of it.
Right.
so all that was education for me, just to kind of set the scene. So, given that we put in the spec, what I'm going to suggest is for this, and I'm going to ask, actually, I'm going to suggest is it plausible to spec for this vehicle and for those other vehicles, which we'll talk about at the town meeting. And I think there's like 14 other vehicles or something that were,
No, two other.
Two others.
Well, one other vehicle this year.
okay.
But there's 14 other, the town owns in the ballpark of 14 vehicles, yes.
So I'm a long-term planner, I did
Yes.
corporate planning, and so you gotta look out into the future, as long as this vehicle's gonna last. What's your plan? How do you replace that? And is it better to do this or that and have different replacement time periods and whatnot? So what I'm thinking is, it gets to this, the issue that not issue, but the suggestion I made last year, is to ask the question, would you bid on electrification of this vehicle? Is it even plausible? If they say no, that's fine. If they say yes, then we can ask the question, we're only going to buy one of these in a long, long time, but the other vehicles, we're going to be looking for more. So what I'm thinking of is sending a message, and I know the answer is probably going to be, yeah, we'll figure something out, but it's not available. But if we could get an idea what it costs to electrify this.
We had this discussion at the last meeting, so I'll cut you off.
Oh, okay,
before we
okay.
get too much further along. But as it stands right now, as far as we know, the only vehicles for this purpose that are electrified, LA recently purchased, I believe somebody said, the first one in this country, but it's a hybrid. Because you can only get so much battery, that thing, if they've got a structure fire, they've got to be able to go out and it's got to run for whatever it is, 2 to 24 hours, depending on how long it goes.
If I'm remembering correctly, it made this one look cheap.
Yes, so the hybrid technology is being implemented in fire service, mostly in other countries, was essentially what we came up with. In this country, it's just starting. They run about 1.2 million. I think we're all on the same page, Doug, as far as the idea of wanting to do that as soon as it is both. I think from my perspective, there are several components that come into that it'll serve the purpose we need it to, that it is reasonably tested,
That's huge.
and that it's reasonably affordable.
I'm not suggesting
So-
that I would recommend that. I wouldn't recommend anything without seeing the numbers.
Yeah.
Or even the practicalities of, do we need some special facility to house that? What I'm thinking of mostly is for the other vehicles, this would be the start, to put out the question,
Yeah.
and by the way, could you give us a price on this? And then we can evaluate it over time.
Yes.
Maybe that price differential is changing, but create our own little database so that when we get out 5 or 10 years or 15 years, we'll have a better feel as to what's the likelihood that we might want to do that. I'm not suggesting that we do it now.
I think with certain vehicles, it's going to be a high likelihood 5 to 10 years from now. I think with other vehicles, perhaps fire engines being, again, just the usage determines, and a hybrid might become affordable, and that might be a good option in 5 to 10 years. I think them being full electric in that time period, pretty unlikely. But, as I'm sure you know, many of the big industrial vehicles are driven by hydroelectric motor, or not hydroelectric, but hydraulic over electric, or electric over hydraulic motors individually on axles. And so it's a technology that's definitely coming along, but it's not readily available in commercial vehicles yet. But I'm certainly, I probably won't be here when we're talking about that, but or sitting in this seat. I hope I'll be somewhere around.
Well,
But,
to be honest, I've come around from we got to be totally off of fossil fuels to I don't think we're ever going to be off of fossil fuels. and we're gonna have to draw down carbon to accommodate that. We're not
Yes.
gonna let the fossil fuel industry just operate unfettered. We have to have a plan.
Yeah.
But I won't get into it now, but it's probably a 60-year proposition. Excavators, fire engines,
Absolutely.
trucks like this are probably never, and even pickups that go up down the hill,
Yeah.
probably are not going to be electrified. But all I want to say is let's ask the question so that we have some information.
Yeah. No, we've gone through this exercise. I'm on the board up at Putney School as well, and we've gone through this exercise with school buses up there. And they've gone, you know, when we first started exploring it, they were running 275, 300, something like that for either a hybrid and or, I mean, you know, the options are full electric, hybrid, and or liquid natural gas. We don't have liquid natural gas filling around here, so, but, you know, the hybrids and or the full electrics run serious money. And like you said, you know, here, if we're running kids up to Mount Snow and back, the ability to do that with full electric is tough. They're now more like 150, 175, but a regular bus is more like 75 to 100. So they're still twice the cost, but they're coming that way.
$100,000, you could draw down a lot of carbon with whatever's coming down the pike. There's things happening. I'm involved in a
Absolutely,
group.
yeah.
It's international. There's 13 people, up to 13 people every week on a call, and they're going to be testing a particular technology this summer. And if it works, it won't draw down CO2, it'll go after methane, because methane is the #1 concern right now. So you can spend your money there and get a lot more bang for your buck than electrifying buses. And so I'm just asking to put that in. So the question then is, do I dare propose that at the town meeting, or just leave it here?
I am, or any one of us who wants to talk about it, could certainly bring up the fact that we had a discussion about electrification of these vehicles. I mean, I think that we're all cognizant of the fact that we'd all like to be headed that way, but that the technology just isn't there yet.
So I won't bring it up on
Yeah,
Tuesday.
no, but you're happy to remind us to mention it.
I'll be ready in 5 years when I close my shop. But
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, for me, you know, hydrogen cell technology possibly, you know, is on its way for these types of vehicles that you're talking about. Otherwise, again, liquid natural gas, I mean, I know it's a fossil fuel, obviously, but they're way more efficient. You know, is that a possible replacement at some point in the future? Maybe, you know, it might be as a.
I mean, I would love to have a Tesla. I can't. Yeah. And actually, those solar panels are probably going to pay out in 20 years.
Yeah.
I may not be here.
Yeah, but they'll be paid for.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying my money, so that's my justification.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a solution for everybody to do. That's off the topic, but I just wanted to ask you your advice on that. Should I bring it up on Tuesday? And I'll see how it goes, but I might mention, I'll have something prepared.
Yeah.
For future.
Well, look, I don't know, who was it? I know Will was talking about, but somebody knew about the LA vehicle. Was that you? I mean, you might just search online, hybrid electric fire engine LA, and, you know, it might inform your thinking about how you might bring up the topic. You know?
Well, so I guess the question, getting back to the fire truck, has the spec been written already? And could you add a sentence in there that said, by the way, could you give us a price to electrify? Is that even?
The spec is mostly written, and no, we did not include that. The main reason is, there's only one manufacturer that has that available.
And we know it's gonna be $1 million, so.
No, that didn't weigh in at all.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't even know that until the night of that first meeting. But the reality is it hasn't been tested. And
that also,
too much of a gamble.
I don't think, not that this is a determining factor for us, but I don't think there's a American-made that's
It's not,
tested for that, right?
No.
I mean, not that that's a requirement for us, but, you know, I think that the ones that are replacing their engines are in the countries that are more ahead on this technology.
So it's hypothetical, we don't want to waste any time.
Perhaps, sure.
I'm happy with that. Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
You've appeased me, thank you so much.
Thank you for keeping us on it.
Nancy?
Nancy?
No, I'm just here. I missed the last meeting, so I wanted to come in.
So, Tom, got anything else to say?
Do we need to go through the background, some history, what got us to here, and why we're coming early? Or,
If you want to take 5 minutes to do that, or 3 minutes, or whatever.
I'm not sure I can keep it that short, but,
Karen, you got it.
okay, I'll keep it as quick as I can. 6-8 months ago, we at the fire department started to put together specs for a replacement engine that's due in 4 years. We got started early because in the past we've not got an early start, it becomes very cumbersome, so on and so forth, and we just want to give ourselves plenty of time. So during that time frame, we realized that the cost of this proposed truck or any proposed vehicle was going to be much more than we've seen in the past, and this town has seen in the past. During it, we found that we had a significant value still left dollar-wise in the truck that we've got. So in order to keep the cost as low as we could, we put everything together, and it came to, the town manager felt, then the select board felt it would be appropriate to go to town meeting. And when I talk about cost savings, the amount of money that we're gonna save 4 years from now is gonna be in the $200,000 plus ballpark. So between that's between the cost increases, the annual cost increases for a new vehicle, and the decreased value that we would get for our trade-in.
And the one other factor that we didn't talk specific to that, well, maybe we did, but, you know, interest rates are just
Exactly.
historically low.
Right.
I mean, if, you know, you look at that possibility of going from 1 point, or even 2% up to 5%,
Right.
even if it's with the bond bank, that's a tremendous difference in how much money we pay back. So, you know,
And I
it's
still got 2 minutes, so.
good time to bond.
And just to expand a little bit on our existing truck versus our proposed new truck, what we're proposing, and at the fire department, we sat for several hours and talked about what we're looking at for replacements down the road. And the reality is, our ladder truck, our existing ladder, we're gonna have that for a long time. Our tanker is gonna be the same. We'll have that for a lot of years. And when that comes to be replaced, it's not gonna be an exorbitant amount of money because it won't need to be. The two workhorses of the department are the two engines. That's where the investments are gonna be made. So this truck, very similar to what we did with engine 2 5 years ago, this truck will be built heavy, so to speak. So it's got the heavy front end, heavy transmission, heavy motor, so on and so forth. So in 20 years, instead of us buying a new truck, that truck will go through a moderate refurb and continue to run at about a quarter the cost of a new truck. In today's world, I'm sure it would be the same then, and then continue to run it for another 20 plus years. And I made it, see Josh?
Yeah.
I'm watching that clock. You still got a minute, though.
I'm done, I'm watching that clock.
And you can see the last meeting on ECTV if you want to go through the whole presentation. Thank you.
All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions or comments, we might move on to our regular meeting. So we will close this public informational meeting at 5:29 by that clock. We will call our,
Sewer.
oh, yes, first we have to have a Sewer and Water Commission meeting. So we will call that to order at 5:31. And this is related to a request for a new connection to sewer and water at 26 Bellows Falls Road, which is well, it is the former pub, but it's actually the small outbuilding that's just south of the pub itself, which is, I understand, being renovated into a living space.
Yes.
And wants to be connected to sewer and water.
Correct. Correct. So in your packets are the applications with the letter from Marquis and Morano, who's designing and designing the plans for connection. We do have allocation for this hookup for a single family. It's about 250 square feet. So a total of 250 gallons per day is a standard for single-family residents. And we'll have a small kitchen and a bathroom in that pre-existing shed as it is, so. And from Marquis and Morano's letter, they have 210 gallons per day for the supply.
I'm not sure where that comes from. It further states that in the current state potable water supply. So it states that any residential property connected to a municipal supply is capped at 210 gallons per day. But our ERU is determined at 250 per
It
day.
is.
So I'm
Yep,
not sure.
it is.
I'm
And
not
the
sure why
state-
that doesn't.
No, the state does, has it at 210, and we got it at 250.
So we should change that at some point.
We could, I think we need to revisit our policy for water and
Yeah.
sewer.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a state requirement, we shouldn't be going over it, I would think.
Right.
But,
Was the state requirement higher when we put ours together? Was that?
Maybe.
may have been, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, they've been trying to, as water appliances get more efficient, they've been trying to drop it, but I don't.
Right,
Maybe we haven't
It's
kept
capped
up.
at, but we don't, I mean, we don't cap,
What does that actually?
we don't want, I mean, that it would get shut, in theory, it would get shut off at 210 gallons a day, but we don't do that, or that the
So-
usage should max out at.
right. And the billing, so we bill, 250 gallons per day. And maybe because we rounded it up to make it easier on it. I have no idea, because it was already
We
in
have no
place.
means, but we wouldn't shut anybody's
No.
water off.
No,
We can't
no,
do that.
no.
Well, you can shut somebody's water off, but we can't do it like on a daily basis
Right.
based on usage. so-
Right, exactly.
And we wouldn't unless they were very far in arrears anyway, so.
Right.
But we should just look at why that doesn't equal ours at some point. But we call it an ERU, or I believe that stands for an equivalent residential unit. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
And equivalent residential units are based on the number of occupants in the building, et cetera, so. But they're looking for our purposes, they're looking for allocation of one ERU.
Correct.
And we have the capacity for that, both
We do.
in sewer and in water, so.
Yes, we do.
Unless there's any reason that anybody would object to it, I would entertain a motion to approve the application for allocation and connection to the Putney water system and to the Putney wastewater system.
So moved.
And seconded.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve allocation of one ERU for allocation and connection at 26 Bellows Falls Road for both water and sewer. And sewer does not go in ERUs, but sewer is just
Right.
income. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.
Exciting.
All right, so,
Yes,
yeah,
it
that's
is.
exciting. So we will close the sewer and water commissioner portion of the meeting. Change hats, everybody. And open the regular select board meeting at 5:36. Any adjustments to our agenda?
No.
Okay, approval of minutes from February 12th.
I move to approve the minutes from February 12th.
And I second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of February 12th as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, public comment on items not on the agenda. Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have two. I'll be brief, but I am going to raise a couple of points. One, I'm going to give you each a copy of something I picked up at the Wyndham Regional Commission office, which is Vermont's Regional Planning Commissions at Work. It is rare that I have seen so much information on one piece of paper. And one thing that's really interesting is what each of the regional planning commissions around the state, there's 11 of them, has to say about what their priorities are. And, comparing them, one learns some interesting things about, well, why isn't ours doing this? Which is something to perhaps to explore. But there is a map of all the towns in Vermont, the territories of every regional commission, and the services they are receiving. And I note that Putney appears not to be receiving any assistance with bridge and culvert inventory. I don't know whether that's of any use, but I do note this.
We have
We
received
are.
that as a.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's simply their map isn't up to date. And the other is, I note that we don't seem to be receiving any of their assistance regarding economic development.
We, I guess that's a question. I mean, we participate with Sevens, as you know, which is BDCC, not Wyndham Regional.
Right.
I mean,
So municipal
Yeah.
planning grants is part of Wyndham Regional Commission.
And we certainly
do take
participate in
advantage-
those.
Yes, we do. So as far as economic development, we will be utilizing Wyndham Regional
Well, the
in
reason
the
I
near future.
The reason I raise the point, of course, is in recent years, although this is a small Vermont town, and our economy is much smaller than, say, Brattleboro's, economic development still is exactly that. And Putney has been undergoing economic undevelopment for a while now. So that's why I raised this point, and I'll simply give you copies. I wouldn't do this,
Thank you.
give you more information, except I found it to be truly excellent. And I thought, I learned a lot from this.
Thank you.
Good, that's helpful. One thing I would say about that, I mean, I don't think you were present, we had a meeting, 8 weeks ago about signage in town.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, that was in some ways a kick, there has been a business group that has been exploring economic development. We, historically, the select board has not, other than encouragement and municipal planning grants, et cetera, we have not inserted ourselves into, sort of business-related economic development in town. We are starting to, based on your observation that
Right.
we're undeveloping economically, we're starting to pay more attention to that. And I think this signage meeting, which there was definitely a
Yes.
representative from Wyndham Regional there, as well as a state representative and a few other people, quite a few other people. It was a well-attended meeting. Was
Yes.
a discussion largely about how we can promote our little corridor here of Route 5. And, as I'm sure you're familiar, signage on 91 is very, very restricted. And, in this day and age, the reality is that most, at least young people, are doing most of that kind of exploration via their phones or tablets or whatever it might be, but we're exploring ways that we can promote economic development in the town, and particularly the existing businesses who would benefit from improved visibility, et cetera. So, but Wyndham Regional, we definitely have those discussions with Wyndham Regional, so I'm not sure why that isn't on here. But
I will ask Chris Cantor.
yeah.
Points well taken, Mr. Chairman. And I was not suggesting that the select board involve itself in becoming an economic development agency. I was simply speaking of the town of Putney.
Yeah.
And this is a public meeting where we talk about the town of Putney.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I was present at the meeting which you described.
Oh, you were? Okay.
And, well, that's okay. My usual situation, I just disappeared.
Disappeared.
Yes.
You hid yourself well.
Yes. Actually, I spoke in some detail about the question of signage. I pointed out that the southbound exit, there's no problem. And at that point, there was a vacancy on one of what they call the 3 sign assemblies.
Yes.
It has now been occupied by Next Stage Arts. But, you know, it's easy enough to get more along there. There's plenty of room. Now, what I brought to the attention of the commissioner was that for the, I beg your pardon, that's the northbound exit. For the southbound exit, as you know, it comes out, when you come out, there's hardly any distance before Route 5.
Yes.
And the question is, how can you possibly have what they call official business directional signs there? There has been no response, and because I've been involved with other projects for the town, of which you are aware, I've not gotten around to doing follow-up, but I am going to do follow-up on that. And if necessary, you know, ask our members of the General Assembly what they have to say about this. Because there has to be some way around the regulations for the southbound exit so that we can have something there. Well, Putney is extremely fortunate to be right at an interstate exit.
Yes.
And Putney Village is, well, as we know, right on the town line. Half of the exit is in Dummerston. So, you know, there's opportunities there.
Yeah.
And I shall be following up on that to see if I can get some sort of insight into whether we could have an exception because there's such a short distance. Theoretically, this, according to current regulations, the signs aren't allowed because there's not enough distance there.
Distance.
Well, if there's no other possibility, then don't we need some sort of variance? You know, as opposed to, sorry, you can't have any, and southbound people have no idea what's in Putney other than they look to their left and see Sunoco. Nothing against them, but there's plenty of other places to visit in Putney.
Yeah, the other option there would be, you know, that is when you come off that exit, you are directly opposing private property that I believe belongs to Ramona Lawrence, but you know, it would be possible, given the limitations that we know exist even in that setting, to approach a landowner and say, could we have, and actually I hadn't really thought about that spot, but you know, it might be a nice spot for something decorative and interesting that would at least say, hey, there's a village right there. You know, I mean, I think it says Putney 1 or something like that, but it doesn't tell you much about it. So, but these are things that we're exploring.
We're looking at,
You know, of course, thing is in Vermont, you know, you see a mile or two to some place. If you're not from around here, you have no idea what's there. And in many Vermont places, so-called, you go there and there's people living there, but that's all there is.
There's nothing else there.
Yes.
Yeah. No. I mean, and you may remember, I mean, Bellows Falls went through a big thing with this when they painted when they painted the side of the building right there with a mural, you know, sort of nice, well done mural saying visit downtown Bellows Falls, and it didn't fall within the state regs. So, but then they appealed and they got it approved. But you know, we don't have that setting of a building right there. But I think you're right. There must be variances that would allow us to do something. So.
Well, when I saw that the state had challenged that back then, this is a few years ago now, I chuckled because Mike Olahowski, representative, long-time representative, since he was age 18, and a Harvard student from Bellows Falls, lived on Atkinson Street, was Speaker of the House.
Yes.
And I thought, I wonder if they're actually going to get them to take that sign down. And of course, it's still there.
It's still there. Well, they did get it approved, and I don't remember under what conditions that was, because it really doesn't fit into.
The conditions were Michael Bohosky was Speaker of the House.
There you go. And good at it, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that's probably right.
The other point I'd like to bring up, I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but the Wyndham Region Broadband Project questionnaire.
Yeah.
I picked up a copy down there and had a visit with Susan Westop, who is heading up this project. This is an excellent survey. And it is really important that as many Putney residents as possible, Putney residents and businesses as possible complete it, because Communications Union District is something really new in Vermont, even though the legislation's been around since, it was amended in 2015 and was around before that. But there aren't actually any CUDs in operation yet. So we're breaking new ground here, but the more information there is, in terms of where there is service and where there isn't, the more convincing this whole project is going to be. Now, Ms. Westa told me that Dummerston is mailing them to residents, and I know that's expensive. I'm not necessarily suggesting doing that, but I am emphasizing that getting them out every way possible is certainly really important. And you have various ways of communicating with Putney folks.
Yeah.
I'll add one that I don't believe I've seen listed, which is have them available at town meeting.
We're going
Yes.
to
Yes.
have them available at town meeting.
Yeah.
We haven't advertised. You know, the other thing, I don't think we've done that. You know, we probably ought to have signage out front saying,
Yeah.
come pick up a broadband survey,
Yeah.
you know.
We're
Do it
gonna, yeah.
online, yes.
And do it online, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, we were gonna have a conversation, because it's in
Yeah.
your packet.
Yes, yeah.
So,
And further than that, I would just offer one final suggestion, Mr. Chairman, and that is that as they come in, we keep track of which parts, not which people we've heard from, but which parts of town we have heard from.
More or less.
And if some assistance is needed to do that, I know everybody is busy with their jobs, I'm willing to come in and help out with that. Because the idea is to find out if there are particular parts of town where we're not getting a response. These are the places to follow up.
Yeah.
So as to get as many responses as possible from everywhere, including the people who live out at the end of long roads.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea, as far as I can see, or should be, to provide universal service.
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Now, because, you know, take right here, you know, next door at Next Stage Arts, they have, I measured that the other day, they have 26 megabits per second download. That's fine.
Yeah.
Up in Noise House, they have 30 megabits per second download. You know, this is great.
Yeah.
But then there's other places where downloading anything is either impossible or close to it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Slow.
You know, go to sleep and wake up in the morning and see whether you got it.
Yeah, is it there? Well, and even slower typically uploading.
That's what I was just
Yes.
gonna say, downloading isn't my issue, it's uploading.
Yeah,
And for a lot of people that are doing work from home, uploading is essential.
yeah,
Yes.
Um,
Yes, and that's the difference is there's two kinds of internet connection. There's an asymmetric connection where you have a fast download and a slow upload, and there's a symmetric connection where it's fast both ways.
yeah.
And basically, in terms of technology, there's nothing to it. It's how they set the equipment. Because there's actually a series of bands that can be operated in either direction. It's just how many you allocate to one or to the other. And if you allocate equal numbers, you've got a symmetric connection.
Right.
That's what's actually going on. So it's no big deal technologically. It's not that anyone has to invent anything. Everything that's needed is off the shelf right now.
So, well, I'm sure that Karen will have made note of your offer to
Yes.
help.
Oh, yeah, I
And
have
I
a
think
name right
that
here, Howard.
as we start to get those, I mean, we're gonna have further conversation
Yes.
about this, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we are with decision-making about how, other than I know Karen and I discussed having them at town meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we
The
are.
town
So,
meeting, the library, we posted it on iPutney, I've sent it to you.
It's on the website too.
It's
You
on
sent me the
website.
survey? I missed it.
That's okay.
When'd you send it?
I think it was this week.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm a little behind
Yeah.
on.
I want to mention too, Howard, because it's very important that if someone fills out a paper survey, it'll come back into our office and then we manually put it in online. So it's important that if people can do it via electronics, you know, computer, iPad, whatever, phone, we're supposed to be getting an OCR code that people can scan and it pulls it right in and they can fill that survey online.
Right.
All that information is going to be disseminated to the powers of B, EC Fiber and the other company. And they're going to take all that information and put it together. But a hard copy will have to be manually put in, and they're asking the towns to do that. So I may have you possibly do that.
Something is, well, I'm going to, first I'm going to address 2 points. One, you just raised something in my mind, but first I'll mention, since we are at a public meeting here for the people watching on TV, when I talk about checking that where responses have come from, we should have no interest in who responded.
Right.
But it is simply just in terms of saying, well, have we got good coverage in this neighborhood versus that neighborhood? This neighborhood, for some reason, we're not hearing from them. And it's important that we do, because this is how we can move toward giving them good service.
Yep.
But the other thing, to the town manager's point just a moment ago, I am frankly concerned that the survey results are immediately being given to a company that potentially will benefit to the tune of tens of millions of dollars from this information. If in fact, I have confirmed that the estimate is $30,000 a mile to run a fiber optic cable along existing, on existing poles.
You're correct.
Well, in Windham County has just under, 3,777 miles of state and travel town highways, leaving out the interstate because no one lives on the interstate. And so that's a total of $41.3 million. That is one of the biggest public work projects ever in the state of Vermont. Now, of course, they want to get a piece of that, and more power to them as long as they're competing with others to get it. And this is what I'm concerned about, is if they are getting direct access to the information before their competitors are, it places them in a very preferential position. And I say that as one who has worked in this field, both on the side of contracting the services and on the side of providing the services. And that is something that I'm going to raise with the Windham Regional Commission.
Sounds like a very valid point.
Because
So EC Fiber and ValleyNet. ValleyNet is the one putting this survey out.
well, ValleyNet, actually EC Fiber is a subsidiary of ValleyNet. ValleyNet's been around forever. They were around 30 years ago. They were one of the first internet service providers around here, along with Silvernet and Monadnet over on the Keene side of the river and so on. EC Fiber is their company that does this sort of work of streaming.
Right.
But
They lay the fiber.
the point is, they should not be insiders to this when they stand to benefit to, beyond consulting fees, a very, very large amount of money. $41 million. You know, there is a windfall.
No, that's it.
So I will raise that, and as I say, nothing against, because we're in a public meeting here, nothing against ValleyNet or EC Fiber per se, but simply they should not be in an insider position here.
Yeah. No,
Versus they do have competitors. And for $41 million, there will be plenty of competitors.
Yeah, one would think. Good, well, thank you. So as this continues to come together, we will, I'm sure you will keep yourself informed, but we will keep you informed also as to how you might feel.
We'll work together as usual.
Yeah.
great.
So the surveys are due March 17th.
And, you know, I mean, it is sort of a little bit of an oxymoron that they're asking people to potentially do surveys online when we're surveying people who have broadband access.
Right,
So, you know, we should be looking at how to get that. I mean, you know, as you say, people can do a printed
Yep.
copy, but that's a little cumbersome.
Right.
You know, we should just be thinking about how that could be.
We're
Can
thinking
we put
postcards.
can we put signs over the computers in the library? Would Emily?
Oh,
She might
that's an
like to do
interesting
that.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good idea.
Yeah, because we're thinking about putting a postcard together.
And actually, I mean,
And then if we have to do the mailing, we can do it, you know, early next week and,
yeah, I mean, you know, if you do a postcard, it would be a good idea to make that point that, you know, if you don't have access to do this online, please go by the library.
Right,
You know, I
right.
don't know how long the survey takes,
it's not gonna, it's not that
you
long.
know.
I'd say 15 minutes.
That's what I was gonna say. So, you know, I mean, sort of promote it as something, you know, come by the library and
Yeah.
spend 15 minutes
Right.
making clear, you know, where you stand. kind of.
By the way, just one final point, Mr. Chairman, an advantage to someone, perhaps me, pulling together where we're hearing from. This could lead to doing a follow-up by mail for the people we haven't heard from.
Yeah.
Because maybe they just aren't online,
Yeah.
because it's not possible.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it would really reduce the cost of postage, because we would be targeting
Yeah.
particular.
And does the survey ask you to identify yourself? I'm assuming not.
No.
It may ask you to identify your neighborhood or location or
It asks
something.
for the E91 address.
Right.
And it explains
Huh.
that this is simply so
Yeah.
that they can figure out,
See who
you know,
they-
the
yeah.
geography.
Right.
But at the end, it says, you know, if you'd like us to contact you, please give us your name and your
Right.
email address. But
Right.
this is up to you.
Okay. Good. Keep moving along on it. So,
Thank you, Howard.
yes. Okay, so select board items for discussion and action. Public notice approval, conveyance of public property, forest for learning, 4.11 acres. So this is the parcel that we've had a number of discussions about. And basically how this works, my understanding is that we agree that we intend to get this, and then that gets posted. And people have the ability to comment if they choose, and then we have to open it for discussion at the end of that, I would assume.
Right.
And before it can have final approval,
And at that point, I think we'll be ready, maybe for,
perhaps. But this is a step,
transfer.
but even if we're not ready, this is a
Right.
step we have to take either way.
correct. We
So,
definitely need to do this.
So this does not actually convey the property, but it's a step in the direction of being able to convey the property.
And this is the property adjacent to the 0.9 acres we're keeping around the pool. It's in the floodplain, that
It's 4.11 acres that we're transferring to Forest for Learning.
got it. And that piece is, that 4.11 acres is adjacent to the pool.
Correct.
Correct,
Yes, yes.
And we're keeping that
Yes.
The portion that the pool itself
Right.
sits
Yes,
on.
and the right of way down to the pool and the parking lot.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, it's under 1 acre, David,
Mhm.
that we'll retain for the pool. Because we can't do anything, we can't build it,
I was just
anything,
gonna
we
say,
can't
it's all
do
floodplain
septic.
anyway,
Right.
so.
Yeah. So we're restricted.
No one's gonna hay it anymore.
Probably not.
Not with the invasives down there.
All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to approve the posting of this public notice related to the gifting of land from the town of Putney to the town forest for learning?
So moved.
And seconded.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve this public notice of the intent of the town to gift 4.11 acres from the town to the forest for learning. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and then we have
You sign.
signed, yes. And then we have a similar public notice, basically identical public notice, but about a different piece of land. Hang on one sec. And this is the piece of land, let's see, that is
2.3 acres off of Taylor Road.
So this is that parcel that we've had discussion about, that has been on, that we purchased at tax sale a number of years ago and have been sitting on. Actually, we purchased it in 2004.
Correct.
And it has been sitting off the tax records, and so we would like to be allowed to sell it in order to get it back on. So a motion to approve the public notice related to the ability to sell the parcel of land located, I'll read the description, being all and the same lands and premises conveyed to Anna Seward by the warranty deed of Herbert W. Herring Jr. and Jean B. Herring dated December 11, 1968 and recorded in Book 45 at page 18 of the Putney Town Land Records.
So moved.
And seconded.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the public notice for the town to sell a 2.3 acre parcel on Taylor Road, as described. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and that moves us to town manager's report.
All right, so we touch base on broadband survey. I don't think there's anything else I want to add,
Okay.
but we are gonna, this is rolled out to some people, but it will definitely be rolled out next week.
And we have, okay, so we haven't made it available in these locations yet, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we might want to, in the interest of, I don't know how it reads. I wasn't looking at this aspect of it, but wherever we post it, we might want to encourage people to complete it online.
Right.
As opposed, even though it's available.
Right.
And if that's the means by which people are able to do it,
Yeah.
great, we welcome that.
Right.
But we should probably put some signage related to it saying, in the interest of reducing the workload on town hall, please do this online if you're
Yeah.
able, or something along those lines.
Yeah, we'll set it up with the library and.
It's already on, the link is, so people might have already been doing it.
It's already
Right.
there,
Yeah, so the link is on the website and,
And that website is
iPutney.
okay, so it's on iPutney,
yeah,
and it's on the
Our-
town website,
Yes.
which is,
www.putneyvt.org. O-R-G.
I
there
wonder
you
if
go.
we could get a few tablets to let people do it at town meeting. Because it doesn't take very long. It's like if we were actually had a table set up there.
Well, we want to have a table anyway at town meeting, and the survey will be out there with, you know, an announcement,
But the idea of having,
tablets, yeah.
yeah,
I wish we had the OCR and we could just scan it and people can do it right on their phones too.
Might have it by then.
I'm hoping.
You should, yeah, push that. That's Wyndham Regional, who's gonna bring
Yeah,
that up?
they're following through with the company that did the survey.
So my question is, if so few people, percentage of the town actually come to town meeting, is 2.5 weeks to do this enough time?
So they
To
said
expect a reasonable amount of people to do it,
Yeah,
especially
if-
ones who aren't connected?
if they get 20% overall from Wyndham County, they'll be
But
pleased.
does that serve us at kind of the Howard's point, that, you know, I mean?
Maybe not, because what we're trying to target is the ones that are underserved. And like Howard said, it's the people on the last mile, you know? And, yeah, I don't know if we're gonna reach all of them.
I'm sure we're not gonna reach all of them.
Door
'cause
to
we
door
never do.
squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I know, we have the census
Yeah.
going on too.
Can we ask the census takers to do the survey for
well,
us?
that's an idea.
They haven't started,
That's,
but see,
We probably can't.
Yeah, I
No.
know, I
No.
know, I'm joking.
No.
I-
we get
this
someone to
survey is
follow
due
them.
March 17th. And then they're gonna roll into the business plan and everything will be done by August.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a strong timeline.
So we really need to hype up the survey.
Yeah.
The other thing about survey is it's only one per household.
Right.
So,
One per address,
yeah,
okay.
so. if
One
you-
per, no, one per, well,
No, because if you
I mean,
have,
if there's apartments,
it's a
But those are
household.
individual addresses.
It's a household. Now, if you have an apartment, they ask for your apartment number, so.
Yeah.
right, exactly, so one per household,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know how they're gonna read out the duplication. So it's one per household.
How they're gonna weed out the 120 filled out surveys from Mr. Howard Fairman.
Only one, Howard.
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
Well, I already submitted them, so you're too late.
And from what part of town?
All over.
And I'm not even Russian. I just wanted to mention, Mr. Chairman, that while they might figure that they're satisfied with 20%, having done some work in survey research, I would suggest the problem there is when you send out a survey and you ask people simply to fill it out, as opposed to, when they do political surveys, they phone you. And if you're-
Self-selection.
Yeah, it's self-selection.
Exactly.
And of course, low percentage of response means you got all the people who self-selected. They are the people who are really interested.
Right.
They've been waiting for this to happen,
Yeah.
and so now they're participating.
Yeah.
It's the next group
Yeah.
that one needs to
Is
reach.
more important.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Now there are some people who are simply, who simply will never be interested,
Right.
because that's true of anything.
Yes.
But it's to get that second group.
Yeah.
That's where that's where the challenge lies, but that's also where the valuable information is.
Well, we might be able to, I mean, you said a volunteer, a surveyed group, we could certainly ask people at town meeting to, if they are willing to
Knock on their neighbor's
Right.
door.
knock on their neighbor's door kind of thing,
Yeah.
that we would really appreciate that. I mean,
I know.
we don't have the person power to do that ourselves, but
Are Putney school kids looking for a volunteer project?
that probably not on a short,
That
probably
it's
not
really
on
short
notice
notice.
like that.
I know.
But I guess the other thing I would say related to that, and I'm trying to think of people that I know that would fit into this, but anybody that we know that falls into that category of being valuable information related to this and is unlikely to fill it out on their own,
Right.
Most of my clients.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, you
The
could put
surveys
some,
at your
you
shop.
could
Absolutely.
put them in everybody's
But
car.
they're
Meals on
gonna,
Wheels?
those people are gonna want
But
paper.
that's a really
Yeah.
good
It's
idea.
gonna be
Yeah.
cumbersome, but they are not gonna fill it out online.
Yeah,
They're
no,
not.
I agree.
One
They
conversation.
actually asked me to do that stuff, and I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
So the people that I would see would wanna do it on paper, as cumbersome as it is.
Right. Meals on Wheels is what you just.
Yeah, Meals on Wheels is a good
I
idea.
think you're right about that, sir. That, we do not want, online should be a convenience rather than an obligation.
Of course, yeah.
For those who say,
Unfortunately, it's a convenience for us also, so it's
Right.
sort of, we would have an interest in that, but again, we shouldn't discourage people from doing
Right.
it in writing if that's their preferred method.
well, and in fact, Mr. Chairman, we are effectively running a business here, and they are our potential customers.
Yes.
And as with any situation like that, if you say take it or leave it, they'll leave it.
Yeah.
Making it easily available, and as far as recruiting volunteers, let's see what happens, because it may be that this project will take off in this community.
Right.
As they point out in the introduction to the survey, once fiber optic cable is strung everywhere, we have a technology to last.
Yes.
Because essentially, there's no limits to the capacity unless we suddenly grew from around 3,000 people to a city, which is not going to happen.
Yeah.
I heard an interview today, a gentleman from Charlotte, North Carolina, saying he's 89. He was growing up there when it was 100,000, now it's 1 million. Nothing like that's going to happen anywhere in Wyndham County.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We hope not anytime soon.
Can I suggest that we offer these surveys to the Putney Food Shelf, who often has folks coming in that have
Yeah.
accessibility issues on many levels, and to Putney Community Cares. They may be able to get it out to folks that maybe aren't as apt to find it online.
And I'll take a pile.
Sure.
Sure. Put it in my shop. Every customer
Right.
comes in, they don't fill it out, I work in the car.
Okay. Next stage, we can bring them over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure they're Putney residents. I don't know how you're gonna determine.
Well, the
without-
address, when the address comes in, that would probably,
Well, and also, I mean, I'm assuming at least Dummerston is participating in this. So even if we get some Dummerston residents, that, you know, that's not gonna hurt us. But, you know, that would be, as far as Mr. Fairman was saying, the other thing, well, I mean, of course, the post office has the technology to do this, but we know perfectly well that there's a whole lot of Putney addresses around here that
Right.
are not in the town of Putney, so.
and it asks you what town you're in.
And,
So
yeah,
Okay, good.
you have to, you have to circle what town you're in,
Right,
or in
so-
your online choose.
Dummerston is there.
Yeah, but it's,
But
there.
Oh, and Westminster is. So all our flanking towns are covered by it.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I would do.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good, thank you. All right, town meeting preparation announcements.
Yeah. So what do we have? So lunch has been confirmed for town meeting. They'll have a smaller menu.
Yeah,
So,
soup similar to the
yes,
past kind of
yeah,
thing.
so
Good,
that it's by donation.
good.
It starts at 10 a.m.
And that has historically, anyway, benefited, I believe, the Four Winds program. So,
Is it? No, I thought it
No,
was
Four
for the
Winds is the
school.
bake sale now,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
the
is it?
school started
Yeah.
the lunch program,
right.
Yeah,
is
you
now the
remember.
Right.
beneficiary.
Yeah.
okay.
But it was, up
Yeah.
until a couple of years ago.
Either way, it's by donation and it's for a
Yes.
good cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're not quite sure how long town meeting will be. We do not have the school portion this year.
Which has come up many times to me, that,
I believe under other business.
Yes.
In your packet, there's a draft agenda, and I did put the school board announcement of important dates. And I'm trying to coordinate to see if we can get a school board member to attend town meeting. So if there's any questions, they can address.
I know that
The
Putney,
residents.
there are folks that plan on getting up and asking for somebody to speak on behalf of the school or the school board, just to
Okay.
give a little update, so, just something to know.
Yeah, I already anticipated that. And
I think there's a hope that in coming years, we will put something on the agenda that includes that. Like, includes some kind of briefing from either the leadership council or the school board itself, but just something that includes a small briefing, not
Right.
the whole spiel that will happen at the budget meeting, but
I think from my perspective, it's important for us to remain the town, not the school. I mean, not, you know, I'm more than happy to have a school Q&A there, but I'm sure not gonna try and
No.
answer any of those questions, and I
Yeah.
don't think any of us should, because it's not our purview.
yeah, I absolutely
You
agree.
know, I mean, I think that my feeling would be, Karen and I talked about this a little bit, that, you know, when we move to the other business section, we should move through town business, and then if there wants to be a school business discussion, that's fine, but,
Right.
but that would be up to the moderator to moderate that, and I think that we remove, or I certainly am gonna remove myself from that discussion, because it's not something I'm informed about. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Fairman?
Mr. Chairman, not to challenge what you have just said, but to consider an alternative. Typically, at the beginning of town meeting, if members of the General Assembly are present, we invite them to say something.
Yeah.
And there now are members of the school board who live, who are specifically allocated to Putney and live
Yes.
here. They could similarly be invited to speak. So that it simply becomes our elected representatives saying something to us. Some of whom are members of the General Assembly, some of whom are members of the school board, but they all are our elected representatives.
It's an interesting idea. I think it's probably late in the game to try and do that formally this year.
Right.
But I think going forward, that would be, I mean, I think that, you know, we're all interested in hearing about what's going on at the school, or I guess I speak for myself, but most people would be interested in that. So having some forum that can happen, I would be a little concerned in that context if you get into a long drawn out discussion that's
Right.
reflective of the greater board discussion. So, you know, how to manage that. But again, I guess that would be a moderator question as much as anything, but I think that's a good idea going forward.
I will mention this to the moderator, because of course, actually, the town meeting is a voters' meeting presided
Right.
over by our elected moderator.
Yes.
Who is actually free to do things such as, let us say that some of our members of the General Assembly are there.
Yeah.
To, with the permission of the voters.
Electorate,
To
yeah.
invite them to address us.
Yes.
Because that's one of the reasons we sent them up there, not
Yeah.
only to do something, but to tell us what they did.
Yes.
And your suggestion is exactly in keeping with what I've been hearing from people they would like, is just a summary, something very similar to what our representatives do.
So I think the question in my mind for this year again is, do we have somebody that would be willing to do that? I know you said Ann Beekman has no voice, so
Right.
she's not the right person for that.
Coordinate, well, I'm talking with Tim Morris,
Yeah.
so he's the other one for Putney.
There's also Leadership Council, which I'm not sure what that looks like, where that's at.
Yeah.
I really haven't been keeping my finger on the pulse of that as much as I would like to. Their
And it-
meetings are often on our meeting, the board meetings
Oh,
often,
okay.
like there's one in
Right.
Putney right now
Yes,
happening.
yep, yep.
But and the Leadership Council meetings aren't at the same time, but I don't know exactly how far along they are. And I don't know if the board would be comfortable with them being the representative, but they are in many ways, as I understand it, are representative from the school to the board. So,
Yeah,
are
I
like
mean,
our liaison, our connection in many ways.
To Mr. Fairman's point, they wouldn't be elected by the
No, they wouldn't
electorate,
be.
so, and that wouldn't, in my mind, prevent them from having an opportunity to speak, but it's certainly not the same type
Right. No,
of
it's not.
relationship,
No.
so, you know, it probably, that, at least the formal person speaking should probably be whoever's elected to the larger board,
Right.
and then, you know, maybe it gets opened up. I don't know, I mean, I think,
Yeah.
you know, this is the first time for all of us that
Right.
this is the circumstance, and I think people are interested in it. So I think we have to see how it evolves, but I think that going forward, we should certainly allow for that in whatever way is possible and/or legal. I don't know whether there's any legal requirements related to that, other than to get the permission of the electorate to make a statement at town meeting, but I don't know how, beyond that, I'm not sure. That would be up to the moderator, I guess, to determine.
Basically, it's under the rules of order, it is the moderator asking the permission of the voters,
Yeah,
who say sure, basically who will say sure, why not.
more often than not, yes.
Because the warning articles, yes, they are mandatory,
Right.
but and we cannot, in terms of town business, discuss anything that's not.
Right.
But in terms of, legislators coming in to speak
Right.
to us.
Right.
Yeah, that's at the discretion of the moderator and the voters.
Yes,
Yeah.
because, certainly it is part of their function to do precisely this.
Yes. Yeah, so, I mean, if nothing else, it would be an interesting question to bring up under, if we don't, under other business,
Right.
we could have a discussion about how
We want to.
we want to have the town hear from the school
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah.
Hopefully there would be one or more people there that would be equipped to answer it, or at least
Right.
query about it going forward from the other side of the table.
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
there's gonna be a bunch of people with ideas.
I'm sure there will, and honestly, again, from my perspective, that's really moderator discussion,
Yeah.
not select board discussion.
Yeah.
Because I think we could get into gray areas really quickly as to purview and responsibility, so. All right,
So there's your draft agenda. In there is your non-binding resolution to be considered under other business. Town-owned property.
I'm not finding this.
Tell the public, Ms. Town Manager, could you tell the public what the non-binding resolution is about?
It is for Putney Mountain. It's
town meeting.
town property that is owned by the town of Putney. There's 49 acres of town forest in Putney and an additional 85 acres in Brookline. And so the select board will seek consensus from the voters on the questions of whether the select board should consider a gift or sale of approximately 49 acres of town forest in Putney and an additional 85 acres in Brookline, Putney Mountain, and be it further resolved that the select board perform a due diligence review to determine whether this property is a valuable asset for the community, and be it further resolved that this resolution does not bind or legally obligate the board to gift or sell this property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, and I know that since we've had this discussion in open session, I will bring up that, we had talked about this being a gift or sale to the Putney Mountain Association.
Correct.
But I'm glad to see that does not
It's not
specify that.
Right.
Because although my guess would be that would be a logical and desirable organization to gift or sell it to, we should not place ourselves in a situation where we couldn't consider options once we've done our due diligence.
I agree with
So,
that.
I think that's good. So. Good, thank you.
You're welcome. I will not add any more items to the town meeting agenda. But we do have to make it through lunch, okay? In your packets also, I do have a breakdown of the projected tax rate for 2020. I wish it was cleaner so you could read it. It's just, it's a little busy. It's like this one in here. Okay. It also has the projected school tax rate for FY 2021.
This, I believe, Karen, should either be in parentheses or have a negative in front of it, right? Because it's a decrease.
Right. let's see what's going on with that formula. So these are projected numbers right now, and they are subject to change, as you know, Josh.
Right.
One of the key amounts is the local agreement rate. So until the grand list is actually lodged, we won't know what that number is.
Yeah.
And this past year it went down, but
This is all, of course, also contingent upon the approval of the articles with the numbers that are in them. I mean, if
Correct.
for some reason
right,
somebody proposes that we buy a fire truck in cash and, you know, add $550,000 to our
Right.
to our general fund budget this
Yeah.
year, then that would obviously shift these, but this is projected based on
Yep.
the numbers that are in the article.
And I predict too, the school is a projected number, and that may change. We won't see that tax rate until like early July.
Right. And grand list gets filed April 1st, April 30th.
Well, it's June 1st, I believe, is when the final
Has to be.
has to be
Filed,
lodged,
okay.
yes. But they start April 1st, yes.
Right, with
Yep.
grievances, et
Yeah,
cetera. Yeah,
yes.
Okay. All right.
Howard, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, especially for the people watching on TV, may I ask you or the town manager to read aloud the important numbers so that people will know what they are?
Certainly. You want to do that, Karen, or you want me to?
Sure, I don't mind. Okay, so for the general fund tax rate for projected fiscal year 2020 is 0.4231. So that is up from 0.4218. The highway tax rate, 0.3553. That is up from 0.3462. So the total for the general fund tax rate and the highway tax rate, the projected tax rate for municipal is 0.7784.
Sorry, and I was wrong, Karen. I was reading this backwards. I was looking at I was confusing the 2020 and the 2019. thinking
Okay.
It was a decrease, but it's an increase, so my
Yeah,
mistake. So
okay.
that's not.
In it, yes.
So that's a 1.35%
Increase. So the local agreement, as stated, it is gonna change, and I don't know what that is, but if I use what we have currently, which is 0.0057, the projected tax rate for municipal total is 0.7841. Now, the residential educational rate is projected to be 1.7750, which is an increase from last year, or this year, at 1.7126. So it's a 3.64 increase. Non-residential educational rate projected 1.6540, which is up from 1.5988, and it's 3.45%. I do encourage people to pay attention to the school board meetings that are going to be coming up. I think there's one on March 10th, and then there's a budget vote on March 17th. We will have information at town meeting for that. You can go on our website, it is all linked right to the school's website. And that's all I can say about the school board, because I can't really explain it.
All right.
So that's the projected tax rates, and again, they will change. The school board also will have annual town reports at town meeting for people to pick up. Otherwise, I think they're gonna be at like libraries and at the meeting.
My understanding is the budget makes the Bible look small. So, it's something else. I haven't had a chance to take a look, but I'm not sure I have the time.
Right.
All right, so that's everything in your town manager's report.
Except for property tax update.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So, it's okay. So, closing out 2019 tax year, we have uncollected $180,597.53. Delinquent taxes, which are 2018 and back, we are owed $72,899.01 for a total of $153,496.54. Oh, that's not right.
Wait a minute, yeah, I'm
No.
confused by that.
Okay.
That's
Can
I
you?
was like, I don't have those
tricky
numbers.
math.
I'm like going, I like that number. No, it's 180.
Well, that sounds a lot better.
Yeah.
How come I have 190?
Do you have 190?
Did you, is this an old one? Did you redo it?
226.
Yeah, it's the old one.
Okay. I make my own mistakes.
190 is
What
the,
was it?
253,496. I think you just,
Oh, yeah, I did something.
Yeah.
So excuse me, so we're uncollected taxes are $253,496.54. So,
it's not a small number.
It's not a
However,
small
the
number,
portion
but-
of that that is delinquent is relatively small. Technically delinquent because it's more than a year old. Right?
yes.
70,
Yeah.
73, you said,
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, almost
Okay.
73,000.
Yeah.
So the fact that the third payment, we still have 115,000 outstanding, that's a high number.
It is a high number.
That's a high number.
And unfortunately, as people may or may not remember, when the third payment is not made in a timely fashion, it invokes a 8%.
Which confuses a lot of people because they think that just because they're a day late, they shouldn't have the 8%.
Right,
They think only a day late, and it's like, well, it's the day,
right, that it's
it gets
due.
put on that day, like it's, that's.
Yes,
So total penalties that were added to delinquent, this last payment was $14,006.80.
that's included in that number that you gave, that
Correct.
big number that you gave
Yep.
us, yeah. No, and I mean, we have this discussion year after year, and have we, as the select board, could choose to not collect an 8%. You know, it feels punitive, and it's on top of that, it's 1% per month.
Right,
Going
right.
forward, so in a year, if you hold it out, you know, that's 20%. You know, 8% right off and then 1% per month over a year for 12 months, 20%.
Yeah.
That's a chunk of money. You know, statutorily, we can collect all or none of that 8% that we choose to. I believe that's how the law reads. It's not an all or nothing, it's a percentage that we want up to 8%.
Right, right.
The problem is if we don't make it a pretty good whack, then it's a significantly reduced incentive to
Right.
pay your taxes on time. So, you know, we've considered that in the past more than once and decided to keep it at the 8%. It also, the thinking is that, that essentially, and that historically, the reason that 8% was there is because when the tax collector was, you may remember 5 to 7 years more, maybe 8 years ago, we voted to eliminate the tax collector as an elected position. But historically, that 8% has been what has paid the salary of the tax collector.
That makes sense.
So, but it also, you know, in that same vein, it offsets the expenses for administration for the collection of those taxes. I mean, when you look at, you know, the fact that it was a $14,000 increase, you know, the amount of time spent trying to collect that 150 or whatever it is, $180,000
Yeah,
is not insignificant. And so that goes to offset that as far as administrative time and cost, so.
and we do make phone calls.
Costs hundreds of dollars just to mail the
Right.
notices. I mean,
Yeah, well, no, and
Every
it's
month, yeah,
very
every
time
month.
consuming,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah,
David,
On an average, is that number that we're delinquent for just this year, not for the stuff before that, is that higher than average or is that pretty typical? And how much is it off by?
well, we would have liked to seen the third payment, like, and half of that.
and, yeah,
So it's
anecdotally,
double. Wow.
well, I don't know, yeah, anecdotally, I would say it's definitely high. I don't know whether.
It is high.
I don't know whether as a trend is
Yeah.
concerned, whether it's double, but it's high. It's definitely on the high side, so,
It is, I mean,
and it's really hard to determine.
Right.
Drive something like
Exactly.
that,
the
yeah.
other thing too, David, is like, if you have there are quite a few people that haven't made any tax payment, not their first, not their second, or their third. So those are the people, you know,
We've talked about that.
we look at and
Right.
say, you know, can we determine what's going on here, you know?
And there's probably not an insignificant number that are on both of the lists.
Right.
The delinquent from a year and more ago and delinquent this year, I would
Yeah.
guess. Not yet
Well,
delinquent,
there's
but
some
unpaid-
people,
but
there,
unpaid
you know,
taxes.
maybe there's probably 10 people that are the same people,
Overlap, yeah,
you know?
yeah. No, and the other thing that's important to remember again about that 8% is it's on any outstanding taxes.
Right.
So it's
Right.
not like that's only on that third payment.
Right.
If you haven't paid the first and second payment,
That's
it's on
really important to
everything you
know.
owe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for the other payments, it automatically goes to 1% per month, but it doesn't have the 8%.
Right.
So if you don't make your August and November payments,
It's actually 1.5 too.
Yeah,
it is 1.5
1.5
Yeah.
after 90 days.
right,
after 90 days.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
1% for the first 3 months and then 1.5 after that. So,
so we have like 16 repeat
yeah,
people, and then there's 12 people that haven't made one payment,
This year.
Mhm.
Got it.
so. But, you know, we'll look into it, and 2 years in arrears, they go to tax sale. Tax sale is gonna happen sooner this year, now that I have we have one under our belt,
oh, yeah,
so.
yeah. It used to happen in
Forward to
June.
that, I can see that.
I'm still a little confused by the first one.
All right, so warrants.
I move to approve and execute the warrants as presented upon completion of review.
And I second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants as presented upon completion of review. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
It's payroll warrant dated February 28th, 2020, in the amount of $24,925.05. So we added some new fire personnel.
It was just that last time.
Yeah, but how many new guys?
They were per diem.
Was it 4?
How many new people?
4 or 6?
So it was more than that.
Yeah, we added,
But they don't work technically for us.
they're per diem,
Paid-
we're
paid-
still paying
Paid
them.
on call or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
They work for other departments.
Oh,
And we
really?
called them in
No
or
kidding.
whatever.
Huh, that's
No,
an
I think they
interesting
cover,
concept. But they
yeah.
have their level 1 certification,
Yes,
yeah. okay.
yeah,
That's good.
yeah. Because usually, like, Brattleboro is like 7 days on, 7 days off. So they're filling that gap,
Right.
which
Interesting.
helps,
Yeah, no,
which helps our
that makes
department.
sense, yeah, that definitely makes sense. So what, does Tom give them a pager, or how does that work?
I'm not
Not that
sure.
it gives them a pager, but
I'm not sure.
Huh,
Although, I mean, yeah, I'm not sure how that works. Because our guys do have computers.
yeah, our people.
Our people, excuse me, yeah. I stand corrected, our people, our personnel,
Our personnel,
There
yes,
you go.
our men and women.
yes. We appreciate them every day.
All right, I gotta go get those.
Accounts payable February 14th through February 28th, 2020, in the amount of $31,162.03. That's a nice low
I
one.
was gonna say, you
I
got
like
it
it.
down, you like these short
I
months. don't you?
know, it's starting to come together, Josh.
Believe me, you won't be able to hold that line, that's for sure.
Oh, come on, Karen, you can hold that one.
Yeah, 31 a month, we're good to go.
Oh, yeah. She must have been typing too fast.
Is it the address?
No, his description.
I almost thought this was Howard for a second. Howard P. Fairfield?
Oh, yeah.
What, the description of what it was paid for? I
Yeah,
typed on. Fine.
painting.
It's okay, on yours I typed Lane L-A-N-R.
Women leading government?
I did,
Good.
Your
yes.
address on your
What's
check,
that?
you know?
There's a
Black
group for
Or, I don't know.
municipal leaders
Yeah.
called Women Leading Government. It's all women.
It's incorrect,
across the
either way.
state
It's okay.
that are town managers.
Figure out
and-
which charity.
The next meeting is in Falls.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
It was a hard
Cool.
charity.
I think it'll be a good resource.
Yeah, that's
Who's
exciting.
Brayshaw? What is Brayshaw? I don't
It's your town reports.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. I like the, is this what were you talking about, spelling? I like that it's woman leading government. It's not-
No, that's not the one I caught.
It's not women, it's
It's
singular.
No, it's the painting.
It's a what? Which one?
That's pretty funny though.
Woman leading government.
I love that. And what was the other one?
Front page,
Yeah.
painting supplies, or Paintiog.
Instead of, yeah.
Pantheon.
So were you telling me that on that woman, oh yeah, I typoed on that too. That's okay, they can still catch it.
We understood it. The dollar amounts didn't change, so.
No, you have it right, Alyssa. You have it right.
She knew what she was doing.
That's bad. Thank you.
So I had to add them.
All right, any other business?
I have received, and the equity committee has received resignations from Angela Burtfield and Nancy Browse for personal reasons. And I will forward the resignations to Karen. I just didn't have time to do that yet. So they are at 7 now, and they are meeting tomorrow night. I plan on going. They're actively looking to recruit
Okay.
2 more people.
Okay.
But for now, they're at 7.
Well, we thank Angela and Nancy for their interest, and we're sorry to see them go, but
Yes.
we understand. So thank you for your service.
Yes.
I want to add to, so Jonathan Johnson is interested in volunteering for fence viewer.
Really?
So you're a fence
Is he
viewer.
qualified?
What do you mean qualified?
I'm just asking.
Yes. Don't laugh, because I have 2 fence.
Fences that need to be viewed?
Yes.
Really?
And you're the only one.
I've
I'm
been the
gonna
fence
build a
viewer,
fence just
I've
so
been a
this can
fence viewer
happen.
for a long time, and
Yeah.
I've never viewed a fence.
So I would make a recommendation that you appoint Jonathan as a fence viewer.
Are
Scott
we
Henry.
sure that's not a conflict?
It's not,
Okay,
no.
as long as that's.
If you wanted to be dog officer, that would be a conflict.
Okay.
Refresh my memory as to exactly what a fence viewer does besides look at, I mean,
So they have to determine.
Self-descriptive, what do you mean?
So, yeah,
What percentage of that maple tree is yours and what percentage is?
is it,
there is
Is
a,
it actually-
there is a
Yes,
statute.
fence viewer.
Yes,
okay,
Yeah.
It's very arcane and mostly unused, but it does relate to placement, I mean, you know, and actually, like I said, I've been doing fence viewing for a long time and I've never had a case. But my guess would be that the legal requirement would be that you compare it to actual survey lines, because in over time, just moving, slowly creeping a fence
and that's what's happening with,
increases your
those
property.
creeping fences or so.
so I am gonna request the fence viewers to.
Okay, so we would need, yeah, and actually, he would be well equipped to do that because well,
He
he and
can,
I can do it together maybe.
Do you know that you could end up having to pay somebody $5 if you don't do your job correctly?
yeah,
I didn't know that, that's high risk.
so I think it's, if we have a plan, you know, like a site plan, you know, with dimensions, which we do,
Exactly. No, it'd be measuring and
Yes.
or confirming
right,
pin locations
Yeah.
or survey markers
Right.
and comparing.
yeah.
Do stone walls count?
Yes,
That's a
Okay.
fence, yes.
well, it's
So
a
the
fair,
whole,
I've heard stories about guys that take the tractor out and move the
Tree
big
lines,
boulder out in the
people
woods.
planting
so they
trees,
only
that-
pushing
that's-
it.
yeah, no, it's not.
Trees
I
are
know
considered a fence?
I know some
Yeah.
very
Trees
real
on-
stories.
Well,
about
they're
that
survey,
stuff.
they're survey
Right.
markers. I mean, there,
I
many,
understand
many
what trees
sur,
are, we're exploring ours right now.
right, many
Yeah.
surveys, yeah, sorry.
One voice at
This
a
is a very
time.
exciting topic. We don't get to talk.
He's not gonna miss
that.
this viewing after all these years.
But, you know, many surveys refer to the big oak at the corner of
Right.
so-and-so and
And these
so-and-so.
days-
In our case, it's a huge boulder that marks
Yes.
part of Warden
Yeah, but
Road.
trees
Right.
fall
It's-
down.
But it's much easier to move a boulder than an oak tree. It's
That's
much easier.
true,
It's
that's
much easier.
true.
So, Jonathan, I feel is qualified to do it, and if Kim is here,
Mhm.
you know, and Jonathan does a lot of his cemetery work
Mhm.
after hours,
Mhm.
so I think it would work well.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was being
Yeah.
facetious about the whole thing, but since we have a couple cases, that's.
You really do have a couple cases? You weren't
Mr.
joking?
Fairman.
No, I'm not joking.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, historically and at present, fence viewers do two things. One is they arbitrate boundary disputes,
Yes.
and the other, even now, if people are not taking care of their fences and their animals are getting
Yes,
out
yeah,
Right,
onto adjoining
Yeah.
property,
correct.
that's another issue that.
They
fence
can
viewers
enforce
has.
that, yes. Well, I don't know what their enforcement ability is, but they can
I don't-
at least view it,
Well, I don't either, but there is that aspect to it.
yes.
You know, people not keeping up their fences and their cows go next door
Right.
and
And
eat
all the-
somebody's
Yeah.
garden or
somebody's
whatever.
corn. Yeah.
yeah,
Wonder if you still have to keep a stone wall 4 feet high for it to be an actual tended fence line. It was like, I remember reading once that it had to be 48 inches.
There aren't
no
many
48
around
inch
here.
stone walls.
Yeah.
Let's start reading.
They're all in
You're
people's
supposed to know
foundations.
these rules.
Actually, I can show you some.
Oh, really?
Up around 5 corners.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I would love to see those. Yeah.
Down in, unlike, my parents live in the northwest corner of Connecticut, and in that area, the fences, it's amazing. The stone walls are huge. I mean, they're, you know, they're definitely 4 feet tall. So partly because they have, right in there, in that area, they have tremendous amounts of stone.
I know, right?
But-
Because the way they landed into place.
Yeah.
all right, so do we have a motion?
Remember that I went to England and saw the stone walls in England. It was just
Yeah.
blown away.
There's a lot out there, yeah.
It's just beautiful stone.
Okay.
I'd move.
Yeah,
I've seen those too.
yeah. It was great. Visiting Pentridge, some of the most beautiful houses, stone houses I'd ever seen. But
Fence viewer.
We're
just
entertaining them.
waiting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it.
So, I move to appoint Jonathan Johnson as fence viewer for the town of Putney.
And I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Jonathan Johnson as a fence viewer for the town of Putney. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I love how they're wrapped into the
It-
point, yes.
It also used to be, I am willing, it used to be, I believe, an elected position way back when.
Interesting.
Wow.
But,
Huh.
Well, we have vacancies,
Okay.
so
yes,
not anymore.
you don't need that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so any other business?
There's some correspondences in your packets. I don't think we need to go into detail about it. So downtown transportation fund is
Yes.
open, so this would be like our sidewalk project.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. I thought about streetscape, but this is the one that's a little too intense for the
Oh.
master plan.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna get with John Bennett on the municipal planning grant. So they're willing to help us out on that.
That's exciting.
Yes. So what else do we have in here? You did see the notification from Larry's office.
Okay, so, and this is not a subject of executive session, no, since it's in our packet.
No.
No,
this is
so
not-
this is just notification from Salmon and Ostrom that there will be a small increase in their rates. We have them on retainer currently at $400 a month. They've asked to be increased to $420, and that their hourly is increased from $150 per hour to $160 per hour. And they just make the statement that these rates reflect a substantial reduction from our customary legal hourly rate, which is $225. So I would just like to thank them for their continuing service and willingness to do that at a
Yes.
very reasonable rate for us.
Yeah.
So, that's a small change, so I don't think we need to officially approve it, but.
No, and I think you, as a select board, you choose an attorney
Yes.
after town meeting. So Bob Fisher is the
Attorney of record, yes.
second in line, and then
Yep.
Larry Slyson is our primary legal counsel.
And we can always consult the LCT.
True.
Yes,
Yeah.
which we try and do. And we also get legal representation from different lawyers occasionally if there's specific
conflict.
expertise
Right,
needed.
right,
So,
Yeah, like the bond bank.
exactly.
So we would use Paul Giuliani
And we,
and
you
not
know,
use Larry.
there used to be a guy who specialized in tax sales, and we used him for tax sales, but that's not the case now. Larry does.
Larry does everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
so.
send him the list and, yeah, go Larry. Yeah, I know. So
All
there's,
right.
yeah, there's a couple other, there's a posting for out here about project stewardship workshop that's being put on by Sevitz. So I'm gonna post that up front. And then there's a letter to the board from Compassionate Brattleboro. Did you see that one?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's something that the Equity and Inclusion Committee may consider. But,
I know about the Brattleboro town considering itself having chosen to be a compassionate town.
right.
That was a few years back.
So basically, they're asking the select board to join the International Charter for Compassion. So 125 cities and towns around the world, a movement initiated by Karen Armstrong and the Dalai Lama. So Brattleboro is involved in that, and I'm not sure, how it's working or,
I would suggest that perhaps this would be, and I don't know.
it looks like it should be a
It should be voted from,
resolution.
it should be
Yeah.
a resolution,
From the
non-binding.
floor.
Non-binding
Yeah.
resolution from the floor. would
Yeah.
be my- And then the select board would take that as a recommendation.
Right,
I think that's how it happened in Brattleboro.
That's the way it should, I
2017.
think.
yeah, right. That's what it says in the letter, Lauren. So,
So, if you're gonna make it to that meeting tomorrow night.
I can bring this.
Bring it, and if somebody wants to
Yeah.
create a resolution, they could check with Karen about the language, but,
Okay.
all right, good. So, yes, Mr. Fairman.
As a point of information, the Equity and Inclusion Committee have on their agenda that they would like to make a report to the town meeting.
Yeah, I want to add.
At town meeting.
I think
Which
it's
would come under other business.
Right.
Okay. Is that on our list, I think?
It's not on our list, but it.
This is why I mentioned it.
Yeah, they weren't able to get a quorum last time because of a few of the issues with members. So they are doing a special meeting tomorrow night, which has been warned, and,
Discuss.
yeah, they were hoping to get that to us before this meeting. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
I mean, committees don't typically report at town meeting, especially if we haven't had the conversation that they're gonna have in advance, but they can certainly bring it up as other business. That's their right, so. Okay.
I simply mentioned it so that you would know.
So that it's on the radar, thank you.
Yeah, because I was looking at it today and there it was.
Yeah, good, thank you. All right, and my understanding is that we will be having an executive session.
Yes.
So, would you like to move that we go into executive session?
So moved.
Yeah, second.
And it's been moved and seconded to enter executive session, and this would be pursuant to Title I VSA 313, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public or official or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting. So are we likely to have a decision?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to stick around.
Yeah, you need to vote.
So it's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So we'll see you in a little bit.
Go for it.
All right, so we have exited executive session and no decision will be made. We had interesting discussion, but no conclusion. Thank you.
And our next meeting is
Oh,
March
and our next
3rd.
meeting is March 3rd. Town meeting.
Town meeting.
We'll see you all at town meeting, we
Yes.
hope. And then our regular meeting, we
March
will end up
11th.
having an organizational meeting shortly thereafter. We
March
haven't,
11th.
we don't want to have it, we won't have it before, we don't have to
No.
have it before then.
No.
Yes, so we'll have an organizational meeting March 11th.
Yep.
And we have to adjourn, right?
And motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
you.